Tea.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this big, beautiful world. We are Talents Unlimited Toastmasters. We meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we have a venue that's different from other Toastmasters clubs, and we are a podcast. So, our podcast venue allows us to practice our public speaking, to include our pathways, special training, topics of training, and sometimes challenging topics that will test your public speaking and perhaps your debating skills as well. So we welcome you to this evening, and we are about to begin and continue the Toastmasters Promise series, where we started this series in the beginning of our Toastmasters year. So having said that, we're going to go ahead and start this Toastmasters series with the Toastmasters Promise. The Toastmasters Promise series, we're going to refresh our commitment. So this is an opportunity for not only members in this club, but members throughout the world to refresh that commitment. So what is that commitment? Well, first of all, let's start off with our mission statement. The mission of Toastmasters is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every individual has the opportunity to develop oral and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and that personal growth that we are all seeking. So let's review these Toastmasters Promise. So we're just going to skim over these real briefly, just as a refresher here. Now, number one promise is to attend the club meetings regularly, prepare your projects to the best of your ability, basing them on the Toastmasters education program. So these two particular topics we went over, and they're available for your viewing through our website, which we will provide at the end of this meeting. To prepare for and fulfill meeting assignments. That's what we're going to go over tonight. Other promises: to provide fellow members with helpful, constructive evaluations. Martin Abad gave a presentation about that. Thank you, Martin. And to help club members maintain the positive, friendly environment necessary for members to learn and grow. So we got that one coming down the road. To serve as a club officer when called upon to do so. Well, we cover that part of the series as well. And to continue to treat fellow Toastmasters, fellow club members, and guests with respect and courtesy. Something that we all need to challenge ourselves to do, and that's to bring guests so they can see the benefits of Toastmasters and how it may have an impact on their potentials. To adhere to the guidelines and rules for Toastmasters education and recognition programs. And another one that we had a presentation on, to act within the Toastmaster core values of integrity, respect, service, and excellence during the conduct of all Toastmasters activities. So that rounds out the Toastmasters Promise that we all committed to when we signed up to Toastmasters. As I just mentioned, tonight's promise in this Toastmasters Talents Unlimited series is to prepare and fulfill meeting assignments. I'm going to be presenting. I'm Robert Ortiz. How are you all doing? So let's get on with it. So what is it about meeting roles and responsibilities? Why is it so important? We're going to get into that. But as a Toastmaster, it keeps the meeting on track, introduces speakers, and manages the transition as we go on through the agenda. The evaluator is an important role, provides constructive feedback to the speakers. And that's an important role because without that constructive criticism, feedback, we at Toastmasters will not be able to develop and gain in that personal growth. We have a table topics master who leads a session of impromptu speaking. And believe it or not, well, I know you believe it, life is full of impromptu speaking. It's just how we handle that speaking that we're going to talk about. And some groups have a grammarian where we monitor and improve our grammar and errors made by speakers and everybody during the meeting. We have an OWL counter as well, which we try to eliminate ahs and ums and all other kind of filler words that you often see from politicians. And once you gain that knowledge and look out for those ahs and all those other filler words, you'll be able to see what kind of speakers those politicians really are. So that's the importance. That's what we're going to cover this evening. And we're going to begin with the Toastmaster himself. So let's talk about understanding the role. If you are assigned a role like the timer, grammarian, table topics master, or even a Toastmaster, Jim, what kind of preparation would you suggest for a Toastmaster?
Well, if he's a Toastmaster, we're not talking about a timer, grammarian, or table topics master, right?
Correct, just a Toastmaster.
All right, so the Toastmaster has several duties that they have to do. One of the top ones is to make sure that all the agenda roles are filled out. And this usually happens before the meeting. And I don't mean like 5 minutes before the meeting. This should be done days in advance so that the Toastmaster can prepare and know how to go through the agenda and who's doing what, at what time and where. And, correct pronunciation of names, make sure that the speakers have all their information lined in so they know how to properly introduce the speakers and all that kind of stuff. So there is supposed to be an agenda that's lined up. We used to use free toast hosts, but in this particular case, we're doing it a little bit different than the normal meetings. So the normal meetings use free toast hosts or some version of that where the agenda is laid out, and it behooves the Toastmaster to take the time to go through that agenda and understand everything that's going on for that meeting.
So Carolyn, understanding a role as a timer, what kind of familiarization for a timer do you recommend?
I would recommend they familiarize themselves with the timing cards, the red, yellow, and green. Make sure that they have downloaded the information or have some physical cards. I know we used to have a timer, lighting timer, and make sure that they know what the speech timing is.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we all know table topics is 1 to 2 minutes, and evaluations 2 to 3 minutes. So you just need to familiarize yourself with the timing procedure.
There's also some functionary cards or flashcards. So when the timer is being introduced by the Toastmaster, they don't have to memorize what to say. They can just read off the card. And the timings of everything are on the card, and they can just go through it. So if they have a mentor or someone that's assigned to them, that mentor can walk them through all the different steps on how to fulfill that job. It's a piece of cake. Once you have the functionary cards and all the pieces in place, it's easy as heck.
It sure is, because we all are aware, well, maybe not all clubs are aware that there are scripts for every one of those roles that you can download from Toastmasters itself. Isn't that correct? They provide the scripts?
Well, we download them right from our website.
Okay. And you bring up a great point, Carolyn. as an example of speeches, the timing of speeches. How many times have we observed that when we go into a Toastmasters meeting and the preparation, especially for the timer, the question is always asked, how long is your speech going to be this evening? And I guess that preparation is part of looking, it goes both ways. It's a responsibility of those giving speeches and providing that introduction, as well as what the purpose of the speech is and the length of their speech. So that way the timer doesn't have to ask questions while they are, if they're doing this live in front of everybody, or if they're doing this virtually in front of a live audience. So it's, we wouldn't do that in a meeting at our place of employment. So why would we do it in a Toastmasters meeting as well? And Martin, as a grammarian, how important is it to get familiar with that grammarian? I mean, we talked about what the roles of a timer is, but that grammarian, what is that all about?
Well, as the grammarian, I mean, you have to be able, you have to pay attention to all the speakers because it's your responsibility to listen for all the fillers, which is, it's really important feedback to the speakers. When we are speaking, we tend to forget about the fillers, and this is a good way to recognize, what if you are using fillers. So as a grammarian, you have to be attentive. You have to pay attention when the speakers are doing their functions. When it is a very important part of the whole setup, for a meeting. And like I said, there's not a whole lot of preparation that goes into place other than to understand what your role is, and to, like I said before, is to pay really good attention to the speakers and then provide that feedback to them. How many times they use fillers and what fillers that they use. That way, the next time that the speaker does another speech, they can try to, focus on that to correct those errors. So to me, it's a very important function.
Yeah,
The
I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
The grammarian also provides the word of the day, and they're looking for colorful language and incorrect English language, right? The use of the English language. So Martin's correct. The job needs to have a very attentive person. They have to listen very carefully, because there's a lot of things that the grammarian needs to catch and talk about at the end of the meeting.
They sure do. And it's from the beginning of the meeting to the conclusion of the meeting that grammarian is paying attention. And they do provide a report as well. But, the object of having a grammarian to begin with is to enhance proper speaking, not just speaking, but speaking in a coherent way that we can express ourselves without, like I'm always guilty of fumbling a lot. So a grammarian is important for individuals like me. And you both are absolutely right. It's a very important role. One of the roles that I enjoy is table topics. Understanding how table topics plays into real life is something that we don't think about too much. Life is full of questions, and those questions often comes up when we least expect it. Comes up at job interviews, it may come up for a loved one, friends. Sometimes the topic of the question is totally catches you off guard. So being able to think quick on your feet, use that mind, keep it fresh. It's understanding the table topics role is something that has to be thought out, especially when you're looking for questions based on the theme of a club meeting. And Martin, I'm going to go back to you here because you are a great table topics master. What are some of the benefits of a table topics master that you can share with us?
As a table topics master, that's something that you do have to prepare ahead of the meeting. You have to come up with a list of topics that you are going to present us. It is very difficult trying to do it at the meeting. When I was a table topics master, I would prepare at least a day or 2 days at a time. I would write down my topics, have it all written down. And what you do is you always want to have extra topics for the meeting, just in case you have some guest, if they want to participate, you want to give them that option. You don't want to create some during the meeting. So what I would do is, depending on how many members were in the club, I would prepare a certain number of topics. I would exclude the speakers, but I would add a couple extra just in case there was a guest. So it's a lot of preparation that goes into being a table topics master. And one of the things also that I would recommend you keep off as a topic is like religion and politics.
Mm-hmm.
And so try to avoid doing that. Like I said, it's just something that doesn't play well in that type of setting. But just being prepared, like I said, I would do it a couple of days in advance, and I would try to make it fun as well. They don't have to be serious in nature. You can interject some humor into them, and try to pick topics that it's not like a yes and no, where they can answer a yes with a yes or no. It's something where they actually have to think about it and give a expanded answer. So try to avoid questions that just kind of tend to be a yes and no questions.
Well, Carolyn, evaluations. Martin talked about evaluating speeches. What about evaluating a meeting? Is there really any kind of preparation for evaluating a meeting, or what's involved with evaluating meeting, and how may you prepare for a meeting? How do you view a general evaluator?
I view the general evaluator as somebody that's going to evaluate the meeting. Number one, if they're going to evaluate the meeting, they need to be there when the meeting starts so they can announce whether the meeting started on time or not. They need to listen carefully to everyone that's participating, observe the meeting, observe what is happening, observe the members, so they can give a report on whether it was a good meeting or not. If everybody participated, or did you have some roles that weren't filled? They can also make suggestions on how to have a better meeting if the meeting didn't flow as they wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I don't think there's preparation for a general evaluator other than the art, learning the art of listening and observing.
Well, Listening to the meeting is important. All of the rules are important, but we can't even begin a meeting unless we have an enforcer. And the enforcer is none other than our Sergeant of Arms himself, Mr. Jim Kearney. Jim, you start the meeting every day. Every week you start our meetings as a Sergeant of Arms here. So what is it about the Sergeant at Arms, and why should you prepare and learn that role?
Well, as a Sergeant Arms, we're here in a virtual environment, so it's easy for me to do the Sergeant Arms role here. Now, if you wanted me to be Sergeant Arms and you guys are in California, I'm here and you're meeting in person, and it's going to be kind of hard for me to do that because the Sergeant Arms has a lot of responsibilities. The Sergeant Arms has to be the first one to the meeting. They have to set up the meeting room, set up Zoom, set up whatever, set up the tables, make sure all the pens and pencils are handed out, make sure whatever paperwork is needed for the meeting, all those different things are handed out. The Sergeant Arms needs to clean up after the meeting, make sure the room is put back together and handed back over in at least as good a shape as it was when it was given to us. But Sergeant Arms has a lot of things going on. And if the Sergeant Arms doesn't take care of it, then maybe you get places that say, no, we don't want you to come back anymore. You know, the Sergeant Arms is the one that controls the outward appearance of the club during the physical meeting that takes place. They meet people at the door. They introduce the guests to the members of the club. They bring them to the president. They show the guests where to sit. They explain the meeting to the guests before the meeting takes place. So the Sergeant Arms needs to be there early. Sergeant Arms needs to take care of a lot of things. Sergeant Arms is the first one in and is the last one to leave.
That's a very good explanation. You know, I didn't even realize that, but you bring up something really important. Whether it is a virtual meeting as ours is always for now, and an in-person meeting. I don't recall a Sergeant at Arms ever greeting, or sometimes they do, but as you just mentioned, is introduction to the president and other members. I think one of the observations for myself is, if the Sergeant at Arms is going to be the very first person that they are in contact with, that Sergeant of Arms needs to be well prepared, I guess. In addition, provide a sense of security for an individual like myself. When I first started, you're apprehensive. It's like, oh, you know, there's a little bit of hesitation. You're scared. And I think that Sergeant at Arms can bring that by what you just explained of that introduction and kind of like providing that security. So
fear is nothing more than a lack of knowledge, right? So the Sergeant at Arms can go a long way to educating a guest and making that guest feel comfortable by explaining the meeting, explaining who does what, explain what's going to happen at the beginning of the meeting. You know, so the president or the Toastmaster is going to ask you, how did you hear about the club? What made you interested in Toastmasters? At the end of the meeting, they're going to ask you about what you liked best about the meeting that will guarantee that you would come back. They'll ask you whether or not you're ready to join. And when you explain all these things to the guest, then when they happen, the guest is already prepared, right? It's not something that's coming out of the blue. There's no fear that's involved because it was already explained and they know what's going on. So that fear can go away. And the Sergeant at Arms has a big role in making that happen.
He or she sure does have a big role. In addition, it's after that initial introduction takes place, it's everybody's responsibility to make that individual, that prospective member, the guest, feel at home and just a special person, as all members are. So we discussed the first two bullets, understanding your role and the preparation that's involved. Martin talked about it as a table topics, research, the type of questions, being non-political, religious. And I think one of the most important things is, other than the first two bullets of understanding and the preparation, is taking the role seriously. It's not a joke. I mean, it's part of not only preparing for the meeting, it's preparing for our personal growth outside of Toastmasters. Where we are in that meeting room, whether it's a conference room or whether it's a team meeting with other members within your group, anything that involves communication and interaction. Some companies call them team members, others may call members, whatever the case may be. Understanding your role in any assignment that he or she may have goes a long way. And one other thing I noted is that when you take a role seriously, as mentioned throughout all of our conversation here tonight, is that listening seems to be the prominent challenge that we all have, the prominent goal that we would like to learn. Because if you listen enough to be a good speaker, I guess you would have to be a good listener as well. So we covered a lot of areas, a lot of great advice in preparation and how to deliver in your particular role. We talked about arriving early, greeting people, and making the meeting enjoyable for everybody. So let's talk about the benefits of having a well-run meeting from a learning your role and preparation benefit. So, Martin, how do you think a club benefits, that environment benefits from preparation and understanding your role? Let's hear your perspective.
Well, a well-prepared meeting, it's going to go very smoothly.
I think we're losing some connection here with Martin. Yeah, I think we lost him. So, Carolyn.
So if
Martin, you're cutting out on us, big guy.
percent return. I am. Uh-oh.
Yeah, you're cutting out. We're gonna.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, there we go. There we go. I think because you were slouching a little bit, we might have had a, are you moving the antenna like we used to on the television sets? No, that's aging yourself doing that. We froze. So Carolyn, let me get back to you. Carolyn, when a meeting is run properly with respect to understanding your role, the preparation of the roles, what is your experience on the transition of all throughout the meeting? What is your experience? How do you know when a meeting is well run?
Well, in my opinion, when a meeting is well run, all the roles are filled, everybody is enjoying themselves, the speakers are prepared to give their speech, the table topics are on point and entertaining. To me, that is a well-run meeting. Because sometimes with preparation, sometimes the people on the outside don't know how much preparation the person did.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are prepared. Some people need more preparation than others. Some do not. I think if the meeting flows, everybody do their part to the best of their ability. I think that the preparation is there. The benefit is that the people have a good meeting.
Mhm.
It's entertaining and enjoyable.
So Jim, can you give us an idea when you know that in your mind when the preparation isn't there and how the meeting may be
You can tell right
developing?
away when these things happen. It's like you get into a meeting and all of a sudden three of the functionaries are not there. And you have to suddenly hunt down people or have people volunteer at the meeting and they're ending up doing double roles or triple roles. That's not a well-run meeting.
Mhm.
If people are prepared, the whole goal, if you want guests to come back, you need to look like a professional meeting. Right. And that means that you have to be prepared because things have to happen, blah, 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 blah. And they have to go on and everything looks and sounds professionally run. That's why you have scripts. That's why we have things in certain orders. That's why we have an agenda. If you don't have those pieces in place and the members aren't prepared to fill their roles, then you have a haphazard meeting.
Mhm.
And when that happens, your guests are not likely to come back. Because when guests come, they want to see something that makes them feel important. And if you're going to be haphazard about it, the guest is not going to feel important. There's no way the guest is coming back.
One of the things that how I view a meeting, if it's well run or not, as Carolyn indicated, is that flow, how important it is. And I look at a meeting as a conversation from the introduction all the way to the end of the meeting. Is it a continuous conversation throughout? If I experience a choppiness in the meeting where there's pauses and things like that, then you lose that professional image, as you talked about, Jim. It's not it's no longer a conversation. It's just like going from one trend. Now I don't even call it a transition. You're just moving along in blocks. And to me, that's not a well-run meeting. It's you want that continual conversation throughout because in a regular meeting, like we used to, Jim, when we were together, uh, the conference room, it wasn't there was an agenda, but it was a continual conversation on a variety of topics. And things were said back and forth. There was communication and it was continuous flow. And that's what I would like others who come into a Toastmasters meeting and for existing clubs to be able to develop that continuous conversation throughout without the choppiness, without dividing the meeting into blocks. Sure, there are agenda items, but it should run smoothly, like Carolyn had indicated. And with such all of this advice, the dedication, learning the roles, and taking the roles serious, it's going to make it enjoyable. As you mentioned, Jim, so people are going to want to be part of something because at the end, the customer meeting all the new members and especially prospective new members, if you come off looking choppy and not a continuous conversation, not enjoyable, like Carolyn mentioned, it's not going to be for them. It's not going to be for them. And tonight I want to thank everybody for their great advice, their suggestions. And for those of you out there, if you could think of anything, reach out to us. We'd love to hear your suggestions as well. This is going to be on YouTube. Leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up on what you think about tonight's conversation. And we can perhaps have another iteration continuation of this particular topic here at Talents Unlimited. So I want to thank our club members here for their for their contributions, their insight, great suggestions, and the overall talent that they bring to the Toastmasters community. Because without you, there's no me, and without me, it's going to be limited success for you, because we all need each other in the end. So I want to thank everybody tonight for joining us this evening. And hopefully you gained some information, and we'll see you the next time here at Talents Unlimited, where we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you.